Section 4.7 is about completing the square. Completing the square is a process that we can use to solve quadratic equations that cannot be factored. It requires that you make a perfect square trinomial. Okay? How do you determine if a trinomial is a perfect square trinomial? Okay? Well, the first term is going to be a perfect square. The last term is going to be a perfect square. And then the middle term is going to be the square root of the first term times the square root of the last term, okay, times 2. So 2 times x times 3. Square root of 9 is 3. The square root of x squared is x times 2. That's going to be your middle term. That means it's a perfect square trinomial, which means it will factor to x plus 3 squared. And that's going to equal 36 in this case. Okay, so you have to, and we're going to make perfect square trinomials. This one already was one. Okay, you need to be able to identify them, and it'll help you with the factoring. Okay. Now, we are going to square root both sides. When you do that, we're going to get x plus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 36, which is 6. Don't forget that plus or minus. Then we're going to subtract 3. So x equals plus or minus 6 minus 3. Now, in this case, don't you dare leave your answer like that. Simplify it out. This means x equals 6 minus 3, which is 3, and or x equals negative 6 minus 3, which is negative 9. So we've got two solutions, 3 and negative 9. All right, completing the square. This is where we can make any trinomial a perfect square trinomial. Now we have to think about, what do we need? Here's a trinomial, x squared plus 14x plus c. What does c need to be to make this a perfect square trinomial? Well, remember, the middle term is the square root of this times the square root of this times 2. Okay. So if I divide the 14 by 2, and square it, that's what I need to put here. Okay, so take your 14 divided by 2, that equals 7, and then square it. So C means C equal 49, and then we will have a perfect square trinomial. Okay, remember in your standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay. In the perfect square trinomial, c is equal to b over 2 squared. In the perfect square trinomial. So, the next one, we want to find c. We're going to take b divided by 2, so 22, or negative 22, since it is negative, divided by 2 equals negative 11. Square it. Equals 121. So your perfect square trinomial is x squared minus 11x plus 121. And that would factor to x minus 11 squared. That should be 22. So, let's use this. Let's use this method to solve. Okay. Once we can complete the square, we can solve any quadratic, whether it's factorable or not. The first thing you need to do, though, when solving, instead of it being equal to 0, we need to move this to the other side. Okay. Okay? So we're going to have x squared minus 12x plus something equals negative 4. Okay? And remember, anything you add to one side of the equation, to keep it equal, you have to add to the other side. So we're going to make this a perfect square trinomial by taking your negative 12, dividing it by 2, to negative 6, squared. Negative 6 squared is 36. So since I'm adding 36 here, I must also add 36 here. Now let's factor so that we can solve. This will factor to x minus 6 squared equals negative 4 and 36 is 32. Now we can square root both sides. X minus 6 equals plus or minus, well, the square root of 32 is equal to the square root of 16 times the square root of 2. 16 times 2 is 32. What is the square root of 16? It is 4. And then the square root of 2 is along for the ride. Then we add 6 to both sides. So x equals 6 plus or minus 4 square roots of 2. Okay, now this one, I do not want you to estimate and give me a decimal. Decimals are gross. Okay, so leave it like this. This is a perfect answer. Let's do another one. Now, one thing with completing the square, we want x squared to be by itself. Okay, so if there's a 2 or something in front of it, we need to factor and divide. Fortunately, with this one, 2 is the greatest common factor, so we would divide by 2 on all of these things anyway in solving. So that's going to leave us with x squared plus 4x plus 7 equals 0. Now we got to move the 7 by subtracting. So x squared plus 4x. Now we're going to complete the square, so we're going to add something. It's going to equal negative 7 plus whatever we add here, we got to add there. Okay. Now b over 2, here's b. So 4 divided by 2 equals 2. We're going to square it. That equals 4. So we're going to add 4 to both sides. Now, factor, combine. We've got x plus 2 squared equals negative 3. Now we square root. X plus 2 equals, okay, the square root of negative 3. Remember, it's going to be plus or minus. You can't forget that. This negative becomes a positive, and you write an I in front. That was the shortcut. The reason that works is because the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 3. The square root of negative 1 is I. Okay, so this is why this is my shortcut. So plus or minus I, square root of 3. We have a complex number. Well, all numbers are complex. Then subtract 2. X equals, put the real part first. Negative 2 plus or minus I square roots of 3. Solving this one. Immediately, I want to distribute the 6x. But then I look at it and I think, wait a minute, that's going to give me 6x squared plus 48. And then I'm going to have to divide by 6 anyway. So let's just divide by 6 right now. We divide by 6. Those two cancel. Nice. So we've got x times x plus 8 equals 2. Now distribute the x. X squared plus 8x. And we are going to complete the square on this, so plus something. It's going to equal 2 plus something. What are we going to add? Well, b over 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Square it. So we're going to add 16. Now, factor x plus 4 squared equals 2 plus 16, which is 18. Square root. X plus 4 equals plus or minus. Okay, if you know it already, it's the square root of 9 times the square root of 2. If you know it already, just write it. 3 square roots of 2. Subtract the 4. X equals negative 4 plus or minus 3 square roots of 2. What else can we use completing the square to do? We can use the completing the square to convert from standard form to vertex form. Okay? To do this, first step we're going to do is we're going to take this 22 and subtract it and bring it over here. Now notice we're going to keep x and y. So this is going to become y minus 22 equals x squared minus 10x. Now, we're going to complete the square. So that means we're going to add something here. Oh, since we're going to add something here, we're going to add something here. Okay? So, what are we going to add? Oh, that's right, b over 2. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5 squared. That's 25. We're going to add 25. That's going to give us y plus 3 equals, factor that, x minus 5 squared. Okay, it's not quite in standard or vertex form yet. We got to subtract the 3. Y equals x minus 5 squared minus 3. Remember, vertex form. Y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. And the vertex is the point hk. So the vertex is the point 5, negative 3. We got to graph it. We will do some more of these.